So, blended learning. Not gonna lie, this week was a huge challenge for me because when I try to learn about these new teaching modalities and teaching strategies, I really try to think how can I apply them to my classroom. And blended learning was a stretch for me because the amount of freedom and lack of control a teacher has in it is both really inspiring and really terrifying. So I'm going to start off with the Kuros question because I think that leads into it. Informal learning, exploration, and play, and what I do in my classroom to um, kind of encourage those things. And the the concept of informal learning for me and exploration in play, even with online technologies, because just kind of that open discovery, um, those open discovery opportunities that George is talking about, I have a real big problem with it. Not because I don't necessarily believe those are great ways of learning. I think they're a great way of learning. I think they're an incredible way of learning. Going out, reaching and discovering what interests you, and seeing how maybe a content area applies to that. It is really empowering for the learner. So I see a lot of value in it. However, I feel trapped by the kind of the limitations of being standardized. So, what I mean by that is I have a standard curriculum that I teach along with other teachers that teach the same core subject, and there's a pathway to success within the classes. The kids have to cover this, and then we cover that, and then we cover this, and then we cover that, and then we cover this, and such and so and so until the year ends. It's a designed curriculum without a lot of wiggle room. Um, the other thing that I'm going to emphasize is a lot of that curriculum is really skill based in my school. So it's, the words the student will be able to do are pretty much our key phrases. So whether it's solve an equation or simplify radical expressions or solve a quadratic equation with the quadratic formula, um, that that's where we are with our curriculum. And with that, knowing that I have a responsibility to my students, not only to get them to learn mathematics and all the joy and all the interesting things that you can find in mathematics, but also to graduate high school. I feel bound to the latter of that. I feel bound to teaching my kids in the curriculum in a way that they can pass the standardized assessments because we all give the same assessments as well. So I need to prepare them for those assessments, and so that they can kind of be successful at Levitt Area High School grade wise, be competitive in whatever way they want to be competitive, and, kind of move on with their future. It's not so much the beauty of schools, but the business of schools, especially the business of high schools. So again, I feel really limited as far as my ability to do informal learning, exploration, and play because I feel like these things, though really important to the human learning process, doesn't necessarily fit in the inhuman manufacturing world that I'm kind of teaching in right now. So if I want my kids to be successful, I don't know how much time I can allow them to play, which definitely is something I'd like to change. And I think blended learning kind of ties really well into that. But this fear, I'm afraid if I let them choose, they won't be successful. So if I let the kids go out and hunt and discover, they still have to take the same assessments that they would have despite what they've chosen. And they won't be successful. However, I feel like blended learning can kind of help with this. I don't know if it fixes it, that's what kind of been my struggle with blended learning um, this week and a half. As I've been kind of reflecting on it, is I don't know if it fixes my or if it like enables me to allow for freedom, but I think it could like crack the door if people understand what I'm saying. So I don't know if I have the ability to do complete freedom with the curriculum that I have. Um, I I couldn't, if someone else is doing it out there, I'd really like to hear your story and what you're able to do. So, like, please, like, if you're listening to mine and you do a really good job with it, especially in secondary mathematics, um, please, like, connect with me because I'd be really interested to see what you would do, or at least hear about what you do. And if that's what your video is about, just point me to your presentation, and I'll just listen to that. Um, but again, I do have this fear that if I let them roam, I can't like control the path, and I really want them to be successful because again, the business of schools and getting kids to graduate is really important to me. I want to see our graduation rate go up. I want the kids to have opportunities, and despite what they've learned, their opportunities are based on one, just obtaining that high school diploma, and two, obtaining a competitive grade. Okay, and I think sometimes that kind of sometimes takes priority in my mind, which I don't know if it should. I think the cool thing with blended learning is that I was saying that before, and I got a little off track again, is that it cracks the door. So having that like kind of these rotation models of learning, I think I can still get what I need them to get in the stations, but potential in certain stations, but then allow more exploratory stations in kind of in the same classroom. So I can see that strategy, the rotation strategy, being a strategy I use. Now, I'm still torn on the amount of time spent with rotation. I'm still torn on whether or not, this choosing time is going to be beneficial, or really how I can incorporate just that open discovery. I'm really confused, not confused. Yeah, I'm really confused on how I'm going to do that. If I wanted to do blended learning. But this quote from the reading really stuck out to me. Even when we have the best intentions, sometimes we fall back on what is easy for us, and I'm also really afraid of doing that. I've seen a world of education that is consistently doing that. It's basically the battle that I'm fighting right now with my entire department. Is we're is though we have the best intentions, we're continuously falling on what we know and what's easy. And blended learning is a stretch for me mentally, and that open discovery is a big stretch for me. But I think it's something to work towards. So, um, and again, I to summarize, kind of to answer the question because I don't know if I did. I really don't do any open discovery, um, or nor do I do really any informal learning. The students that I have in class are really engaging in, I think, teacher-directed formal learning. Now, I feel like I've developed great questioning strategies, and I've really dialed in um, what it means to be engaging as a teacher. I think I've done that very, very well, but I don't think I'm at a point in my career or in my practice where I can say I have the ability or have really offered students the experiences to just openly discover. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. In my kind of the presentation of my plan, I don't know if I'm going to do that again because I'm having such a hard time wrapping my brain around it and where it's going to fit. So if you have any insights, please, please, please feel free to kind of jump in and comment because I really could use the help. So here's what I hope is a good idea um, for the blended learning project, and I'm kind of basing this on, off some of the research that I read in kind of the the methodology, and I really want to do the rotation thing. Now, I think I'm going to adapt the rotation so that it kind of students are rotating not necessarily physically throughout the room, though I really like that idea. Or nor are they like rotating in like small separate groups, but instead we're going to rotate through activities. Now, I want like some of these activities are going to be online, and some of these are not going to be online, kind of to give that blended notion. And I also think there's a value for both of those. So I do like that blended idea. I want kids to be able to take online instruction or online information and the online experience and also incorporate like a face-to-face experience, because I think that is the most real world that thing that they're going to be able to do. So I think that's really important. So, however, again, I'm still not ready to just do that. Have like little stations of open discovery, or I'm not really ready to let kids interact with this learning material in different ways at different times. So that's not what this plan is going to be. What the students are going to do is do a time rotation. So we're going to do like, if you see, so we're going to be looking into gerrymandering and fair division. It's I think, a really cool discrete mathematics concept, fair division. And, I think gerrymandering is also really like a kind of a hot topic. Politics are really a hot topic, and I think kids are going to be interested in kind of seeing how that relates to math. Um, so I did want to try this as far as exploration and aiming. So we're going to do a 10-minute. The first thing we're going to do, the whole class is going to do a 10. And this is every individual on their laptop, because we're lucky enough to have one-to-one computing. Everyone's going to do a 10-minute exploration of gerrymandering. Students are charged with learning as much as they can about gerrymandering, just using the internet. So I want them to Google it. I want them to search. I want them to watch the videos. I want them to get as much information in 10 minutes, though. I am going to stop it at 10 minutes. And then we're going to use a Padlet. I want the kids to kind of jump onto a Padlet I made to discuss gerrymandering. I have an example of the Padlet later in the presentation, and they're going to do that for 15 minutes. So in Padlet, a student's going to be able to, post maybe their personal definition of gerrymandering, and other kids will be able to respond to it. So I'm hoping that online they're going to be able to kind of formulate kind of a class opinion through this discussion. Now, what I think is nice about having an online discussion for this forum is that a lot of kids are going to I think the online avenue here encourages engagement from students. No one can really hide. I can't hide. A shy kid can't hide behind the loud kid who really wants to share their opinion on gerrymandering, who's always talking. That person gets their opportunity by typing their sticky note or in responding to others, while the other person's still expected to kind of communicate. So the loud cannot dominate the conversation, where in the quiet can't hide from the conversation. So I'm hoping it empowers both groups. Both groups will feel empowered to kind of share their opinions and share their thoughts about gerrymandering and again, defining the term for themselves, because outside of history class, which I don't think spends a lot of time on gerrymandering. If I'm wrong, sorry. But I mean, there's so much content to cover in history. I doubt they spend a deep amount of time in gerrymandering, and it's also like so it should be a new concept. So I think they'll need to take time to define it and really understand what's going on, which is going to really help us with their solving of the actual math problem that's going to show up. Then we're going to start to transition out. So that's going to last for 15 minutes, though. And again, just to keep this rotation true, I want to go 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then an open class, a quick, quick class discussion on the definition of gerrymandering, where we're going to quickly define as a class what gerrymandering is, and kind of put that definition on the board. So that that brings everyone from the internet to here, and then I'm actually going to kick them back to the internet to see the problem. So here's the problem.
That if your party holds the redistricting pen, it wields substantial power, and there are multiple techniques at its disposal.
There are a couple of ways that you can reapportion people and put them into districts, and there's a thing called packing and there's a thing called cracking.
Yes, packing and cracking. Not to be confused with the teen drug trend of cracking and packing, which is when the teens hollow out a cucumber,
I think I'm going to censor that out. I think I'm going to censor this part out, by the way.
I saw it on the local news, which means it's real, and every teenager is doing it right now. But in this context, packing means cramming as many opposition voters as possible into just a few districts, and cracking means spreading them out thinly over a bunch of districts so they can't gain a majority in any one of them. Either way, it dilutes their impact. I try and think of it as table assignments at a wedding. You can either break up your 8 awful relatives and spread them out over different tables, or you can pack them all together in one insufferable table of the damned. The Washington Post showed how this can work. Look at this hypothetical state. It's 60% blue voters, 40% red, and it needs to be carved up into 5 districts. Now,
so that's the problem that I'm going to present to kids. They're going to have to divide up that state, that easy rectangle state that has 60% blue and 40% red, and they're going to have to divide it in 3 ways. And they have to divide the state in a way that best reflects the state population. I want them to divide a state that ensures a victory for the Democrats, and I want them to divide a state that ensures a victory for Republicans. And then what they're going to do is they're going to share those solutions on a new Padlet. So I want them to, they're going to kind of create a kind of a display or a presentation of their solutions to those questions, and kind of their defense of those questions and their solutions to those questions. And it'll be important for them to write an evaluation of their peers. I want them to kind of respond to their peers and evaluate their thinking process in their solutions on a new Padlet. And here's a Padlet example. We'll go, what is gerrymandering? This is what a Padlet, so it's kind of like a kind of a whiteboard. So I can new topic. So they'll use it to respond to each other, and they can do all sorts of things on the Padlet. In that kind of that's how and they'll be doing that for homework. So they've I really do think this does blend it. They're doing all sorts of, they're using also different types of modality. In one of the things that I talked about, and I tried to, or the kind of the information that we absorbed. I think this was a little one of the YouTube links. Trying to kind of reflect on it now without going back and looking. I wanted this lesson to be more than just integrating technology, and I hope I did that. And they said, the reading or video that I watched kind of claimed that collaboration was the key. So I wanted to integrate as much collaboration via the Padlet. That's the avenue I decided to choose. I wanted them to discuss and evaluate as much as they could on the Padlet, and that's the skill that, the problem solving skill I really want to focus on. Not only do I want them to see a problem, come up with some solutions to those problems, to the problem, but I also wanted them to defend and evaluate, kind of to move up Bloom's taxonomy. And I think the Padlet's really going to allow me to do that in real time, compared to kind of having a kid present at the front of the class, and then having, again, typically the loud kids in the class be the ones to kind of run the discussion, while other students who still might have really good input kind of sit in the quiet. So I think, again, this empowers all the learners, and really forces kind of people to be open with their stuff and really to evaluate. So I'm excited that this lesson kind of pushes up Bloom's taxonomy, and as well as kind of integrates and the technology is kind of the pathway for that. And from our class reading, I think that's the thing that I'm pushing. I don't want to highlight the tool, the Padlet, like Padlet is making this successful. I think the evaluation, the higher level thinking in Bloom's taxonomy is key and critical. And I'm really glad to get kind of that higher level thinking, in the technology is the tool that's making that accessible. So again, kind of on the blended learning thing, I'm using that rotation strategy that I read in the research. I'm going to teach it in this way. I'm really excited about the lesson. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the flip side.